Hey everybody, welcome to Touchdown BC. I'm Ryan Sullivan. We have got a beauty of a show lined up for you. It was the final stand for Simon Fraser University at Swangard Stadium. BC High School AAA playoffs got underway. We've got all your highlights from the AA variety as well, along with your plays of the month. Following last week's Canadian Bowl, we'll take a look back at a great year in the BCFC, and also Canada West Rookie of the Year, and UBC's own Marcus Davis sits down with our own Jim Mullen. First, though, let's head out to Swangard in Burnaby for the rematch between Central Washington and Simon Fraser. A repeat of a once horrible border battle. The Clan came out like gangbusters as Ryan Stanford tosses it out to Lamar Durant, who does his thing, breaks tackles before being brought down at the Wildcat 6. 3 plays later, and Stanford avoids the rush, scrambles and spots Steven Spagnuolo in the back of the end zone. That puts the Clan ahead 6-0. However, the extra point would be blocked and returned 80 yards by Cedric Cheney to make it an interesting 6-2 scoreboard. That was also the Wildcats' third block kick and or punt in 2 games this season. Then late in the first, Jake Nelson takes off on the designed QB run, follows his blockers into the end zone. That puts Central ahead 9-6. The Clan would get the ball back to start the second quarter as Justin Herdman pokes the ball loose, then falls on it. That gives SFU some momentum. But just as SFU take it, they give it right back as Stanford's pass hangs up in the air a little too long. It's picked off by Anthony Beaver, and they turn that turnover into points as Nelson lobs one out to wide open Jesse Zalk, and it makes it a 16-6 score for Central. And they weren't done in the first half as Nelson throws a backdoor pass to Jordan Todd, who cuts upfield. This is a 45-yard score. But the Clan would wake up in the fourth quarter. Tyler Nickel entered the game, and he would roll out and find a streaking Bobby Pospichil for the score. That cuts the deficit to 37-13. Now 40-13, Nickel decides to tuck it and run, and he gets it in from 20 yards out. This makes it a 20-point game. Then, after the defense holds, Nickel again leads the offense, highlighted by this beautifully placed ball to Bobby Pospichil, and this places them deep into Wildcats territory. 2 plays later, and Nickel finishes off the drive with a toss to Spagnuolo, his second receiving touchdown of the game, to make the score 40-27, and that's how things would end. And now here's a look at your final conference matchup standings in the GNAC. And now let's head over to the other side of the studio to catch up with Jim Mullen and Mackenzie Dalgleish.
Thanks very much, Ryan. Now it's time to talk some SFU football with our SFU Insider, Mackenzie Dalgleish. And Mackenzie, not a great way for the Clan to close things out this year. Not only 4 straight losses, but also multiple score losses. Bring me up to speed on the Central Washington game.
Well, they started out great. They went down on their first drive and scored, but then after that, blocked extra point, returned for 2-point conversion against them. So a 6-2 game, kind of like a baseball game to start things off. But after that, it just unraveled. The defense, who had been kind of strong the last few weeks, couldn't get stops, and they were down 30-6 at halftime. Ryan Stanford did hurt his clavicle, I believe. That's what Jacques Chaplain said in the second quarter. I don't know how bad it is. They didn't want to give an update on that, but even before he was injured, the offense wasn't going anywhere. That led to the big lead, and then it continued on in the second half. And though SFU kind of fought back and lost by 13 points, it was never really in doubt that Central Washington was going to win. And to go back to that block kick, that was their 3rd block kick against SFU this season in 2 games.
Let's talk a little bit about something positive on the SFU side. You've heard his name throughout the year if you've been following the Clan. Jordan Herdman out of Winnipeg with 10 tackles and 2.5 tackles for loss. He's locked up the GNAC tackle lead. Tell us about the season that he's had and the type of future that he can look forward to.
Well, it's unfortunate, as I've mentioned. This guy set the record in GNAC tackles, and it's going to be overshadowed by the fact that the Clan only had 2 wins. No, I don't think a defensive player of the year is going to be on a 2-win team. So he's been all over the place. He set the record. He finished 2nd in all of Division 2, and currently is number 2 in all of Division 1. That could change because Division 1 is still going. but still, he's been all over the place. Abe Elamimian, the defensive coordinator, has just raved about him. Jacques Chapdelaine credited everyone around him for how well he's been. But this is a guy that still has 2 years left and, a chance to get to the career tackle record in the GNAC. And him and his brother came in, new starters, and never skipped a beat. And he's just been a guy that, on a very negative type season, a bright spot and a positive spot for the clan.
One last thing before we go here. You talked about the 19 seniors moving on. Lamar Durant has committed. He will go into the CFL draft. 55 receptions for 685 yards, 4 touchdowns. He's the major target on offense. It's not like you can replace him overnight.
No, you can't. And in a way, you knew this day was going to be coming. Lamar Durant obviously started out at the University of Nevada with Colin Kaepernick as his quarterback and Rashard Matthews as a teammate at wide receiver. They're in the NFL right now, and I think he's thinking that he can go down to the NFL too. He obviously started in Division I, but due to a knee injury, came back to SFU, came home, and gave him a chance to kind of own his craft, get back to prove that he can get back and be the type of player that he was back in high school and why he went to the University of Nevada. But the injury bug has kind of plagued him all the way through. His first year in the GNAC, he was a newcomer of the year. He set multiple records. And then the next year, he broke a bone in his foot and just kind of derailed his season. And then this year, he had mono, which took him out for about a month. And so it's going to be interesting to see how he can do moving forward. You can't deny his talent, but it's going to be interesting to see if he can make it down in the NFL or if he's going to be up in the CFL, because he said he wants to go in the NFL and try that route first and then come back to the CFL.
Mac, thanks very much for this. We're going to do the SFU season wrap-up next week and a look ahead, but a great reportage from you throughout the course of this season, and thanks very much for that.
Thank you for having me, Jim.
A few AA playoff games kicked off last week, but the AAA variety got rolling this past weekend. Mercer Stadium is where we find ourselves in this highlight roll for a tilt between Mount Boucherie and New Westminster. 'Twas a chilly one out in New Westminster, but I guess only the fans were really affected by the cold. Marcel Wang here with a 7-yard touchdown run. It makes it 7-6 for Mount Boucherie. Let's fly ahead to the second quarter, and Jamie Sheeho hooks up with Dylan Musgrove. This is a 35-yard connection, and it makes it 12-7 for the Hyaks. Late in the second Q, Sheeho again to Matt Seymour. This is a 57-yarder. It's a touchdown. It's a major. It's 19-7 for New Westminster at the half. Let's head to the third quarter. Mackenzie Ratcliffe hooks up with Seymour as well. This one's a 15-yard connection, and it makes it 26-7 New West. Third quarter still. Seymour, this is a 98-yard touchdown run. It's his third touchdown of the game. This guy's had a great season. He's having a great postseason. As you can see, still going. 33-7 the score for the Hyaks. Final quarter now, and it's Jordan Guzman, no relation to Juan Guzman, former Blue Jay. This is a 17-yard touchdown run. It makes it 40-7 for New Westminster. That's how things would stand. That's your final score. They move on to play Terry Fox in the next round of the postseason. And here are the rest of your AAA playoff scores. And now here's your AA playoff scoreboard from throughout the province. And now here are your BC High School football plays of the month. All right, following a pretty hefty week of playoff football, we welcome in our BC High School football insider, Dino Jeremiah, as always. Let's start things out with the AAA variety, the games coming up this week.
A couple of great matchups. St. Thomas More versus Vancouver College. Anytime those private schools get together, there's no love lost. Vancouver College winning earlier in the year, but I really believe that St. Thomas More is going to be strong. Terrell Jana has just been outstanding, and expect him to do great things on Saturday afternoon. As well, New Westminster beating Mount Boucherie this past weekend, playing against Terry Fox. We've talked about it all year long. Terry Fox is that team to beat. They're physical, they're tough, they're healthy. I talked to Coach Kadava last week, and they're excited about the playoffs, so I don't expect any surprises there. And then the other matchup with Mount Doug playing against Kelowna. Great to see Kelowna in that final quarterfinal game. Nice to have some representation from the interior, but they are playing the perennial, provincial champs, so it's going to be a tough call for them.
They've lost Marcus Davis, but they haven't slowed down too much, it looks like.
No.
All right, let's head to the AA variety. What do we have to look forward to this weekend?
I think this week is a good week for, again, I think one of the games that I'm going to be watching is Hugh Boyd-Bolinas. Hugh Boyd having to travel over to the island and play Bolinas. That's going to be a tough matchup, and I think those one of those two teams are going to eventually be in the final, and I expect that it's going to be with John Barsby and Mission. Those teams are going to be battling it out.
All right, now as we always do, let's take things home with what's going on in and around football, BC.
Well, exciting stuff with the Grey Cup and being a part of the Grey Cup festivity. We with Football BC are having a fundraiser, and I believe you've just committed. You're going to be there as well and do some of the presenting for us with some of the past Grey Cup champions that have come up through the BC amateur football system, whether it's community, high school, junior, or university. So guys like Julio Caravetta, Angus Reid, Will Loftus, just to name a few of guys that have gone on to win Grey Cups and come up through the amateur football in BC here. So looking forward to it.
It's going to be a good time. His name is Dino Jeremiah. As always, he's our BC High School football insider. UBC's season came to a close a few weeks back, but news has still been churning out of that campus on a fairly steady basis. Last week it was because of the termination of head coach Sean Olsen's contract, while this week the news was a little more positive, and our own Jim Mullen sits down with UBC's own Marcus Davis to find out more.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's Marcus Davis joining us. He is the Rookie of the Year in the Canada West, and he will go for the Gorman Award against players from 3 other divisions across the country. Quite an honor stepping in as a pure freshman, capturing the award and capturing the attention of a lot of people across the country. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's a big honor, and a lot of hard work has gone into just a preparation all year, and glad to be just a award finalist.
It's not something that you go into a season with, the idea of winning awards like this, is it? But when something like this is handed out, what's your reaction?
Definitely you want to be like a team first type player, but the individual awards are a nice addition as well.
And now you're going to have the opportunity to go to Montreal to the 50th Vanier Cup. It's going to be quite the event at Percival Molson Stadium, but there's a number of things that happen around it, and the award show is one of those things for the All-Canadians. Quinn Van Gilswick, Donovan Dale, a couple of former UBC Thunderbirds, or current UBC Thunderbirds, were out at the Quebec City last year. Yep. What have they told you about the process?
They just told me it's a great experience, meeting new people, and just seeing like another side of football. It's just a great time. Great time, yeah.
Now, you grew up in Victoria, of course.
That's right, yeah.
Victoria is a different type of sports town, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot of lacrosse and hockey going on there.
And your father, Alton Davis, one of the all-time greats when it comes to lacrosse. I don't think I'm overstating it. No, maybe not a Kevin Alexander,
right.
but he was a great lacrosse player. Had the opportunity to see him play for Payless and the Victoria teams when they came to the mainland. Why didn't you choose lacrosse?
Lacrosse was a big sport for me growing up, but just getting older, going into high school, I just had to make a choice whether it's going to be lacrosse or football. And just at that point, I just liked football a little bit more, so I decided to go that path.
Tell me about the recruiting experience. Obviously, there were a number of CIS schools that took a look at your talents,
right,
and a number of NCAA schools as well. Who talked to you across the board?
In Canada, it was Calgary and Guelph and Western. And in the States, it was teams like Arizona State, Oregon, and Washington State.
When a guy like Blake Nill comes in with a message, and a guy like Brian Doby comes, they're two very different guys.
Yeah.
You know, they can both make compelling pitches to you. How do you say no to a pitch like that?
It's really tough, honestly. There's just so many different opportunities out there, and they all had a good speech and sat down and talked to me a lot. So it was definitely tough to say no.
Tell me about the process of landing at UBC. Your brother ended up at UBC. Which one of the two of you ended up there first?
It was my brother. He committed there first after coming back to Arizona State, and then just after that, it made it a little bit easier to choose UBC.
And it's obviously easier. And your parents must be thrilled that both you guys are in one place and you're only a ferry ride away. Do they get over and see all the games?
Yeah, they've been over to every game this year, and it's just so nice having the family just be able to come over anytime they want.
There's a lot of talk about UBC being challenging academically. How have you found the transition from high school to the university life?
It's a lot different for me, just being independent and having to stay on top of your classes, and yeah, it's just a different thing you have to go into.
Sean Olsen let go as the head coach of the Thunderbirds. That was a surprise to many. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to ask you who you favor as a coach coming in, but what do you want out of a coach that's going to come in and lead the program?
Definitely a coach who's just enthusiastic about winning, just putting faith into players, and just having a goal of going to the Vanier Cup every year.
Now, you've got this trip coming up to the Vanier Cup in Montreal for these award shows. Is there anything special that you've got planned for Montreal?
Not too much. Just I was actually in French immersion, so I'll be able to go there and practice my French a little bit.
Now I asked you this before. I asked you this yesterday, and you didn't have an answer for me.
Yeah.
Do you have something that you can say in French to the fine folks out there?
Bonjour.
There you go. Well, that's a beginning. That's a start. And you've had one heck of a start in the Canada West and the CIS. Congratulations on the Rookie of the Year award and continued success.
Thank you.
All right, we now welcome in our UBC/Canada West/CIS Insider from Crown Countdown U, the one and only Andrew Wadden. Andrew, thank you for joining me.
My pleasure, as always.
As always, it is mine. All right, now we've had some fantastic games this past weekend throughout the league. Now we're getting into national semifinal time. We got the UTEC, we got the Mitchell. Let's start things out with the UTEC, Montreal, Manitoba. Give me some BC connections.
All right, well, as you know, Montreal doesn't have any connections to BC at all. They love to get their own players in their own backyard. However, Manitoba loves them some BC-born players, and not only BC-born players, but also BCFC players. 22 different players born in BC are on Manitoba's roster, but one guy that I want to point out to start is Jordan Yance, former quarterback with the VI Raiders, one of the best quarterbacks in the entire CIS. And getting back into the BC-born players, you've got Jordan Linnon, defensive back with the Bisons, also Tyler Fong, another defensive back with the Bisons, who we've spoke about on the show. Both of those guys doing some phenomenal work for Manitoba, especially in the playoffs, getting them into a Cardi Cup title and being able to beat Calgary. Another guy that I want to look at, though, is Evan Foster, defensive lineman out of Chilliwack. And right next to him, Kent Hicks. Now, Kent Hicks filled in for Evan Gill. Evan Gill is an all-Canadian for the Bisons, went down earlier in the season with a season-ending injury. Hicks has stepped right in and done a phenomenal job for Brian Doby and the boys.
All right, let's move things over to the Mitchell Bowl. We got McMaster, we got Mount Allison. BC connections.
Of course, we're going to talk about Brandon Lay. We've talked about him numerous times on the show. He's the quarterback for the Mount Allison Mounties, AUS All-Star. Second year in a row that the Mounties have taken the AUS championship. And they're going to be in tough against a McMaster squad that doesn't maybe have as many BC-born players on it, although they do have one in particular, Alan Dix, who had a phenomenal game for McMaster over the weekend, got a pick in that game in the Yates Cup, leading the Marauders to the victory. So that's going to be probably a little bit of a tighter game than I would assume between the Montreal and Manitoba one. I'm kind of leaning towards Montreal in that game. However, the MAC and Mount Allison, that's going to be a good one. And remember, Mount Allison is the only unbeaten team in the entire CIS.
All right, he's our insider from Crown Countdown U, which you should be watching, Andrew Wadden. Though the BCFC has come to a close, there are still quite a few questions up in the air for a number of the teams across the board. Let's join Alex Kerrigan now for a look back and a look ahead in junior football.
For the Valley Huskers, Valley GM Mo Agagné told the Chilliwack Times his team did not live up to expectations set out for them. Agagné also said some of the problems came from the team's lack of depth and size. Both are issues Agagné hopes to resolve in the offseason. The Huskers are losing some big pieces, including quarterback Dylan LaPrairie, running back Benedict Mahima, linebacker Sharif Ali, and defensive back Dylan Boykowicz. The team still has leading receiver Tyrone Lettingham to build around for one more year. The West Shore Rebels had the dubious reputation of being the other island team. Unfortunately, this year, they were just that. They had a 2-8 record with both wins coming against the Huskers. The Rebels are losing 10 players to Father Time. Two of the names that jump out the most are linebacker Chris Pastro and CJFL All-Canadian defensive back Braden Suarez. The team keeps most of the offensive weapons, including quarterback Hunter Lake, for another year. Look for the Rebels to recruit heavy on the defensive side. For the Kamloops Broncos, only 4 players are listed as 22-year-olds. Derek Yatchison, Devin Sinka, and Steve Schweiler all have another year of eligibility, but truthfully, all 3 of those Broncos will have some exceptional highlight tapes and should have options. Running back Jacob Palmerin has 2 years of eligibility left. The biggest age out for the Broncos is kicker Aaron Smith, who was an all-star for his position and will be missed on the team. But the biggest loss for the Broncos is, without a doubt, the resignation of head coach Duncan Olthius. This will affect the Broncos' offseason more than anything. The Vancouver Island Raiders will need to cook up some receiving prospects in order to replace wide receiver Marshall Cook, one of 9 age-outs. Offensively, the other weapons are intact, with running backs Nathan Berg and Michael Rashad both eligible for next year. Quarterback Liam O'Brien just turned 19 at the start of November. If all else fails, the quarterback position is secure. The biggest hits for the Raiders are felt on defense, as defensive end Ash Guyot and CJFL All-Canadian linebacker Dylan Chapdelaine are moving on. Looks like both island teams will need to bolster their defensive ranks this year. The Langley Rams are losing 17 players to age-outs, among them some huge contributors. Some of the big names include receiver Torrey Corrado, D-end Dylan Roper, receiver Daniel English, quarterback Jordan McCarty. But the biggest losses are on offensive line as the Rams lose starters Spencer Lang, Brad Goodchild, and Andrew Chichka. The Rams still have some big pieces staying behind, though, such as quarterback Dylan Tucker and running back Nathan Lund. Also, CJFL Rookie of the Year Ethan Schulz anchors a defense led by young players. Much like the Rams, the Okanagan Sun are great at recruiting. The big age-outs include CJFL Return Man of the Year Robbie Yochum and defensive lineman Zach Ironstad. Other than that, the Sun don't have much else to worry about. Running back Alex Bradley is an age-out, though. However, the Sun have Dylan Fortune for one more year, as well as Corey Nagata.
All right, we welcome in our BCFC insider and the man that just voiced that pack. His name is Alex Kerrigan. He's got some fine fashion sense, as you can see.
Indeed.
Yeah, the 2-for-1 winners shopping here. Very nice. Now let's start things out. We're a week deep into the offseason. Who right now has got the heaviest workload in front of them?
Well, I mean, we're only a week in, but it's clearly the Kamloops Broncos. We just found out about 3 days ago that Duncan Olthius, their head coach, has stepped down to pursue his other work commitments. Apparently, it was too much working on the side and being a head football coach, but they definitely have the toughest go. And I'm saying that even with Steve Schweiler, Jacob Palmerin, Derek Yatchison, Devin Sinka, all of their main offensive weapons still have at least 1 year of eligibility. Jacob Palmerin is going to be there for another 2. But without the head coach there, the weapons are still going to be placed into a new system with a brand new head coach. Olthius has been there since the program had been conceived. Whoever steps in to replace him, they're going to have huge shoes to fill. And with the momentum that the Broncos had built this year, oh man, they better be ready to build this offseason if they really want to build on that momentum, if they want to keep competing as one of the top-tier BCFC teams.
All right, they're a team definitely that's got to go uphill this offseason. Which teams get to go downhill? Who's got the easiest road ahead?
Well, I really wanted to say the Langley Rams, but I just can't say that factually because they have 17 players leaving their team. Even though they have no problem at depth, a lot of the young players are going to be able to step up. The team that has the easiest offseason in front of them is the Okanagan Sun. Even with Alex Bradley, who's the BCFC back of the year, stepping out and aging out, they've been spelling in guys like Dylan Fortune all year. They've got Corey Nagata on the roster, who we heard about from Crown Countdown U. He's a very talented running back, but the easiest offseason is clearly going to be the Sun. Both the Rams and the Sun are the 1 and 2 teams in the BCFC for a reason. It's all about offseason recruiting. Langley's going to be okay, but Okanagan, of course, they're going to keep recruiting, but I have a feeling they're going to be just fine.
His name's Alex Kerrigan. He's our BCFC Insider. That does it for all of us here at Touchdown BC. Thanks for joining us. Stay warm, stay in school, and keep those prepubescent mustaches flowing. I'm Ryan Sullivan, and I'll see you next week.